Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Board While Waiting show. For those who are new on this channel, I'm a regular 9 to 5 worker in the tech industry, and this is where I transparently show my growth portfolio. The purpose of this channel is to achieve financial freedom, which for me is a target of 3 million US dollars. This portfolio focuses mainly on investing in good quality businesses that have high growth potential over a long term horizon of at least 10 years. There are currently 5 stocks in this portfolio, and today I'll be diving into the investment thesis behind the trade desk. So, what exactly does TTD do, which is the trade desk for short? TTD is a demand side platform for programmatic advertising. For example, if let's say you are a McDonald's and you want to advertise your latest Happy Meal offerings, you'd go to TTD platform, you key in how much money you would want to advertise, maybe $1 million, and then TTD would show you all the different kinds of places at a glance you can advertise in, including online publications like New York Times, video streaming sites, Spotify, and more. So, as an advertiser, there is no need to go to each of these different advertising platforms directly to advertise. You can do it all on one platform, which is on TTD. And these platforms are part of what we call the open internet because they are outside the walled gardens such as Google and Meta. Now, the way that TTD makes money is simply by charging a percentage of the customer's advertising spend on the TTD platform in order for them to access all the properties where they can advertise on. So, one common question that is asked is why not just advertise on Meta or Google directly? Now, one problem that advertisers face with Meta and Google is conflict of interest. So, for example, if you are a large advertiser and you are advertising on YouTube, because Google controls both the supply side, which is YouTube, and the demand side, which is Google Ads, their interests may not always be aligned with advertisers. So, for example, if you're buying advertising inventory on Google YouTube, you can't be sure that every dollar that you spend is really optimized to your needs as opposed to Google's needs, because Google basically plays both sides of the court, which is supply and demand. On the other hand, because TTD does not supply an advertising channel like YouTube, but focuses primarily on aggregating all the demand side needs of advertising, their interests are actually aligned with the advertisers. So, whenever I invest, the first thing that I look for is what underlying tailwind trend the business is riding on. It's far easier for a company to ride the trend since a rising tide will raise all the boats with it. So, there are 3 trends that I believe TTD is riding, and they are firstly, the transition of advertising from traditional to programmatic advertising. Secondly, the transition of linear cable TV, which is the traditional TV that you have when you're sitting on the sofa in the living room, when you're watching that from like 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. for a certain program. So the transition of that to a connected TV advertising world, i.e., the world of streaming as we see today with the likes of Netflix, Disney, etc. So, for example, instead of putting advertisements on the regular television broadcast channel on linear TV, you'll now get more targeted ads on video streaming sites, for example, which give advertisers more direct feedback on the success of their advertising campaigns. Because you can't really do the same with the traditional TV sets in a living room. How do you tell how much of that has an impact? Whereas online and streaming sites, you can sort of tell when people skip the ads. You could tell when people are watching longer of that ads. So you can sort of measure the impact of that. So I believe that this transition will continue to grow as the world increasingly goes towards programmatic advertising. Now, the last tailwind trend, which I believe TTD is riding, is the transition of the world from one filled with third party cookies to one that is a cookieless world. So, in terms of competitive advantage, TTD pretty much is what I'd call the cookieless king because it has created a system known as a Unified ID 2.0, UID 2.0 for short. And this is sort of like a replacement system for cookies that is aligned with the privacy regulations of today. Next, let's look at Jeff Green, the CEO of TTD, and try to understand what is the skin in the game for Jeff. So, Forbes reports his net worth at around $4 billion, but I couldn't find how this number was actually derived. So, I did some digging to make some sense of these numbers. What I found looking at the SEC reports of the proposed stock option rewards for Jeff is that if we take the total number of share options that he would be rewarded if the stock price of TTD hits all its targets, that would be about 16 million shares, which would have been awarded at that point. And if we take 16 million and we multiply that by 340 US dollars, which is the final target stock price that Jeff needs to hit for TTD to unlock all the 16 million shares. And if we minus 68.29, which is the cost to exercise these share options, that amounts to somewhere around 4.3 billion US dollars, which is about the value that Forbes reports is Jeff's net worth. So I think we can roughly conclude that the majority of Jeff's reported net worth, at least according to Forbes, is very much tied to the success of TTD's share price. So I think it's safe to say that Jeff's concern is the same as our concern as shareholders of TTD. Now, the reason I dig out these numbers is also to ensure that TTD isn't just a pet project for Jeff. Because if it only constitutes like maybe example 1% or 10% of his wealth, I would be concerned. I want this to be a make or break scenario for Jeff personally. And from these calculations and these investigations, I conclude that that is the case. So to conclude, that was a really short write-up on TTD. But I think TTD has great potential to succeed as the primary advertising platform for the open internet outside the walled gardens of Meta and Google. And it also helps that Jeff is greatly vested in the business and is only 46 years old this year with a long way to go. I'm a huge believer in the programmatic advertising space because in my previous job, I did work on integrations for programmatic advertising, and I can see firsthand how that is way more impactful and way more specific and granular than traditionally advertising on mediums such as TV set in your living room. So yeah, I think as companies shift increasingly more of their budgets to programmatic advertising, I think TTD is well positioned to reap the rewards of as the primary administrator of UID 2.0. So if you'll notice in this channel, I don't really spend too much time talking or showing the financial metrics. I could say in broad summary that the revenues of TTD has been rising very steadily. They're in a great cash position. Their free cash flow is rising. They've got great ROI. Their gross margins are somewhere in the region of 80% from my memory. I mean, these are obviously good facts to share and talk about. But the reason I don't talk about them is because I believe a lot in the qualitative aspects of an investment. So I think that the markets have already reflected what they know of based on the numbers. So if you really want to figure out what the future holds for a company, I think you can't simply draw a straight line, a linear line from past results. It's helpful. It serves as a basis of due diligence to make sure that at least the company is solvent or not in any risk of any short-term debt that would cripple the company or even bankrupt it. But with that out of the way, if we really want to understand how the business can actually drive the stock price up in a very macro sense of a view, I think looking at all these qualitative aspects is actually more forward-looking, I'd say. So yeah, I think that concludes my take on TTD. In the next episode, I will analyze the final stock in my portfolio, Mercado Libre. Also, I would like to extend a promise that from here on, I'll try to be more consistent in posting new content. I'm very motivated once I've shared my thesis on all my individual stock holdings, to talk a bit more about in my investment philosophy for long-term investments, maybe even analyzing some of the great investors such as Charlie Munger or Warren Buffett or Howard Marks and etc. To try to understand and share which parts of their philosophy I actually practice and believe in. I'd love to hear any feedback anyone has. Please leave the comments in the comment section on how I can improve. But yeah, I'll see you guys soon. So thank you for your time.